You are Locked On Dolphins POSTCAST. Part of Locked On Sports Miami on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What is up, Fins fans? What a win, man. What a day. Welcome to your Locked On Dolphins postcast. My name is Jim Grieshaber. Call me Grease. And a huge win for the Dolphins keeps their playoff hopes alive today with a 6-point victory over the New York Jets. Jets, Jets. Oh, what a bad season for the Jets and for Aaron Rodgers. And it seems to me that someone predicted that before the season. Oh, yeah, me right here. And, of course, on ESPN Radio as well. So a big win for the Dolphins today, 32-26 in overtime. Tua Tagovailoa outplays Aaron Rodgers. The field goal fest ends on a touchdown. And the disappearing tight end, who hadn't done anything all game, who had been great in the weeks prior, is the star of the show to close it out, not only with the touchdown that won the game, but the two biggest plays on the drive that got him there. It's Locked On Dolphins postcast. My name is Jim Grieshaber. Call me Grease. Couple of things real quick for you here today as we get you going on a beautiful Sunday. The Dolphins staying alive in the playoff race when they have a lot of teams that are just barely ahead of them. And most of those teams had byes this week. So they're sitting back watching Miami, and Miami needed to win this game. All right, today's show, your Locked On Dolphins postcast. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to PrizePicks.com. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL. PrizePicks.com. LOCKEDONNFL. All lowercase. LOCKEDONNFL to win $50 instantly when you play 5. Say that again. You win $50 instantly when you play 5. PrizePicks.com/LOCKEDONNFL. And then real quick for you here, one other thing here for you. Where are we at here? There we go. We have the newsletters, Locked On Dolphins newsletter. And we love the Locked On Dolphins newsletter. Make sure you check out the daily newsletters with the Dolphins and with your favorite team as well. And then your first listen today is Locked On Dolphins postcast, right? Well, how about your second listen? Go find the all-new Locked On NFL, 2 shows every day. Madman Tyler Allen, Tony Wiggins, The Barbershop. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. All right, let's get to it. 32-26, Miami. What a win. Look at this. Look at all these pages of notes that I have. But what it comes down to at the end of the game was the Miami Dolphins' will to win. What it came down to at the end of the game was a big sack by Zach Sealer to set up the drive that, look, the Dolphins with the game-tying field goal. Jason Sanders missed an extra point early in the game. He ties the game with a 50-plus yard field goal. This guy has been absolute money. I mean, you're talking about Jason Sanders. I mean, his career long's 57. It was 52. He's made his last 16 attempts, and he's now 12 for 13 in his career with under 2 minutes left in the game. So Jason Sanders, and how about Malik Washington with the kick return? They kick it right to him, inspiring run up the sideline, and next thing you know, they have a short field. Sanders crushes the field goal all day long, hitting those field goals, as a matter of fact, because you look at what this game was, and this game was indeed a field goal fest, man. This was a field goal fest. I mean, the Dolphins could not get that ball in the end zone in the second quarter, kicking 3 field goals, and then obviously Tyreek Hill later in the game with the touchdown, Jalen Waddle with the 2-point conversion. They got those guys involved a lot more today. And here's the thing, right? The Dolphins do not have a deep passing game. I am sick and tired of everybody telling me what a great passing game that they should have with the deep ball, because they just don't have it, whether it's Tua, whether it's those guys, and they got the speed for it. And I can explain this as the show goes on. It's not necessarily anything the Fins are doing wrong, although Tua, short passing game to the intermediate to the medium passing range, is as good as anybody in the league, maybe the best in the NFL right now, but the deep balls are not his thing. And, of course, the defenses are cheating back. They know they can stop Miami's run, and we'll get to that. Their running game is terrible, but when you can stop the run with your front 7, even front 6 at times, you play 5 DBs, then you can play zone with the coverage, right? You can blitz and play zone at the same time, which they were doing to Tua today. So you keep the plays in front of you, those slants, those crossing routes with Tua and Tyreek and Waddle open all the time in that kind of a defense. And, you break a tackle here, you break a tackle there. That's how you're going to get those deep passing plays. But as far as letting them actually beat them deep like Tyreek did against Jacksonville in week 1, yeah, that's not something that you're going to see very much of with the Dolphins. And that's a defensive scheme. That's by design, but that's where the speed really helps you. You make teams game plan according to that speed. And here's what happens, right? Tyreek Hill only averaged 11.5 per catch today, right? And Waddle averaged 11. Jonnu averaged 14.7. More on Jonnu in a minute. He had 3 catches for 44 yards, all of them in overtime, all on the game-winning drive. Hey, you know what? Take the first 60 off, bro. Take the first 60 off. Wins the game for him. Tyreek Hill, 115 yards receiving, 11.5 yards per catch, right? So it took 10 catches to get there. Double-digit receptions game for the Cheetah. First game over 100 yards since opening day against Jacksonville. And then you had Waddle, 9 for 99. They almost had 2 100-yard receivers. They haven't had 2 100-yard receivers in a game this year, if I'm not mistaken. But 8 different receivers featured and used by Tua in this game. Yeah, 8 different guys caught balls. You had Tyreek with 10, Waddle with 9. We'll get to the numbers, but what a finish for Miami. You had Malik Washington with the kickoff return. You had Sanders drill the field goal. But before it could even get to that, you had the Zach Sealer sack. You had Tua taking him down the field. And let's not forget how good the Jets defense is, right? The Jets they're 0-7 in games decided by 1 score or less. 0-7. That defense is pretty good, right? They sacked Tua. They hit him a bunch of times. Running game non-existent for Miami. Deep passing game also equally non-existent. So, not the best photo of Tua right there. It's an earlier game photo, but our media partner, the photos will trickle in later and we'll change it. But for now, it's definitely, it's all about the win. Miami with the overtime victory. Tua just a perfect job on that overtime drive. And, you look at Tua 4 for 4 on that game-winning drive, right? Was it 4 for 4? Yeah, and overall, we'll get to the numbers, but Tua with a fantastic day, over 300 yards for the 3rd straight game. They have the number 5 offense in the league since he came back in Week 8, scoring-wise. And, look, it's the Jets allow their 5th game-winning drive on the last possession this year, and their own 7 in games decided by a touchdown or less. They haven't won in Miami since 2014. You're 8-1 in the last 9 games against them, and all those things almost came to an end today on that field. That would have been disastrous. But Jonnu Smith with a 20-yard catch, a 14-yard catch, and then the touchdown, and Miami wins that game. And can you imagine this show right now? And by the way, smash that subscribe button. Hit the bell so you know when we're on, and you can come find us. We're the official Miami Dolphins post-game show on the Locked On Podcast Network, not to be confused with Locked On Dolphins, which is day in and day out. We do the post-games. Good formula for success. And speaking of formulas for success, that intermediate passing game down to the short checkdowns for Tua. One more thing I want to add about that, right? The defenses play back. They almost bubble you in, and then they rely on their tackling. And the Jets are a very good tackling team. So you get to that point, right? You're worried about the tackles. You're not going to let them beat you deep. You're not going to let them get by you. They're certainly not having to stack the box to stop the run. As good as Achane is out of the backfield, and as much as he has a nose for the end zone, he's not a good between the tackles runner. At least not with this offensive line. They're going nowhere. Another abysmal game on the ground for Miami, and it really cost them. They were bad on 3rd down today, which they're not normally bad on 3rd down. They finally converted one late in the game when they needed one for the game-tying field goal. They finally got it when they needed it. McDaniel burned a couple timeouts today that I didn't like, especially the one in the 3rd quarter. There's some things there, but each week they get better. Remember, this team didn't play together at all during the preseason. Guys were out the whole time. Tua played 1 drive the whole time. Maybe they'll revisit that philosophy in the future. And then, of course, Tua's injury and all the little things that have happened all year long and the things that they had to do, game planning so differently without Tua pulling the strings. But on a day when his Alabama Crimson Tide did not make the college football playoff, I had to throw that in because if we're out, they're out too. And, yeah, that's right, University of Miami. Alabama's out as well. But on a day when Tua's college team did not make the playoffs, he did what he could do to make sure his NFL team does. 33 of 47, 331. 7 yards of play, though, per completion. This is dink and dunk and dunk and dink. Who's calling the plays? Bill Walsh? You know what I mean? Hey, it's working. And look, the field goals were the field goals, right? This is one of those things where you're looking at the field goals in this game, and the Jets have a very tough defense. You had some bad penalties today. You weren't good on 3rd down. McDaniel with a questionable call to punt it near midfield in the second half in the 4th quarter. With 9 minutes left, I thought they could have gotten it there. Easy for me to say, Coach. Look, it's 50-50 on that one for me, but just a great job dialing up those plays in the overtime. All of a sudden, there's Jonnu Smith. And, the Jets are kind of maybe like not looking for him now because he didn't do anything the whole game. And then all of a sudden, bam, oh, yeah, there he is, number 9. And he's a big-time player. And as we used to say at the University of Miami, Big-time players make big-time plays in big-time games. And maybe this isn't a big-time game in terms of the team's record, and maybe it wasn't a Monday Night Football game or a playoff game or anything like that. But in terms of your survival, in terms of your season being on the line, the Jets are officially eliminated now, by the way. I know you love that. In terms of your season really being on the line, you have no room for error the rest of the way. You and Indy right there, neck and neck, and you're both 6-7, and then you got those teams like Denver and Baltimore and all that group in front of you. We'll hit that toward the end of the show. We'll take a look at Houston next week. Not an easy team to play. Definitely not an easy a place to win. So we'll talk about that game with the Texans, and we will look more into this game. How did it happen for Miami? That offense been much maligned for no running game, no deep passing game. It came through today. It was 10 yards in a cloud of dust, 15 yards in a cloud of dust, 7 yards, 6 yards in a cloud of dust, right, with the passing game. But that's the way they got it done today. And it led to a victory that moves the Dolphins one step closer to all those huge goals we all had at the beginning of the season with the Dolphins and the Hurricanes that have almost all been dashed to this point. All right, Locked On Dolphins postcast, 32-26. The Dolphins win in overtime. Tua to Jonnu Smith with the touchdown pass to win it. Before that, it was Tua to Tyreek plus a 2-point conversion to Jalen Waddle to get them close. And then the Jets kick a field goal, right? And the Dolphins tie it up with Jason Sanders after the Jets thought they had the game won. The defense, the best unit on the team all year long, they've been let down. Well, today it was their turn to do the letting down. Locked On Dolphins postcast, Jim Grieshaber. Call me Grease, Jim Grease _ GRIES on social media. We're here free every single day on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts on the Locked On Podcast Network. Let's take a break, come back, take a look inside the numbers. Which two Miami Dolphins players are we happy to see making huge contributions again? We'll hit that on the other side. Locked On Dolphins postcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. 32-26, Dolphins win. They beat the Jets. Suck. All right, Jim Grieshaber, call me Grease, and I am here with a reminder for you, right? Time is our most precious commodity. Tick, 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 tick every day. So don't waste it. You see what the Dolphins had to do to win the game and rush kicker out there to kick a field goal. Don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How can you spend it wisely to improve yourself? Well, that's easy. Our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering, and it's a good offer too, they're offering more than 40 free, that's right, free online courses, including just a few of these, right? Constitution 101, Introduction to Free Market Economics, The Rise and Fall of the Roman Republic, documentary-style course on Marxism, socialism, communism, all kinds of things, right? Very interesting courses right there for sure. So all of Hillsdale's courses are self-placed. That means you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or just enjoy the lectures. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. hillsdale.edu/lockedon for Hillsdale College. And you know the NFL season is hot right now. The Dolphins still alive. Staying alive. You see the Travolta commercial? Pretty badass where he's Santa and he's doing, tell by the way I use my walk, I'm a woman's man. Anyway, you know what I'm saying? The Dolphins staying alive. Huge NFL action every week, and you know where to tackle it exactly at FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets in the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, there you have it. Yeah, baby, the win, the cover, the whole thing today. All right, 32-26, the final there, as the Dolphins win it in overtime. Still to come, your player of the game, right? And you got your turning point, and then you got your final score, which is fun to do every week on the show as well as the Dolphins, man, with a tough game today as they win in overtime. They beat the Jets. You're not supposed to struggle that much with the Jets. You're just not supposed to struggle that much with the Jets. But it hasn't been that the Jets have been terrible. All these people, they fired Saleh. I thought they panicked with that. And I really thought that in general, the Jets are a decent team coming into the season. I knew they would struggle. And the biggest reason I felt like they would struggle is Aaron Rodgers coming off the Achilles, and he has not had a real good year. And I'm not the biggest Aaron Rodgers fan. You guys know this. It's been well documented. But, he played a good game today. Tua outplayed him, though. Tua outplays Aaron Rodgers, and that late touchdown, look, so many things happened outside the script in this game with the third down conversions. Usually, you can expect the Dolphins, not much of a running game. You keep waiting for the big passing play. There was a big play on special teams today with Malik Washington, but you keep waiting for the big passing play, and it never seems to come. It never seems to come for Miami, and that's because, again, the teams are bubbling them out. They're making the tackles. They're keeping the plays in front of them. That's what you do with that speed. You keep that speed in front of you, right? You have to keep that speed in front of you, and I want so bad to make this the picture for the final score graphic. It's just a sulking Aaron Rodgers, but on a day when the Dolphins did so much to enhance their position and really just toward the end of the game, you just started thinking, like, as the third and the fourth quarter are starting to unfold, you're like, man, the Jets are actually they're going to win this game. The Jets are going to win this game. And it was not looking good for the offense for Tua. You know what I mean? It was just not looking good at all for Tua in the offense. And they weren't moving the ball. They had a couple 3-and-outs. And how about the Dolphin defense, right? How about the Dolphin defense? No 3-and-outs until the fourth quarter for the Jets offense. None. No 3-and-outs. And they get 2 in a row in the fourth quarter when the game matters most. And Sealer gets the sack. Yeah, it really was. Look, we got Malik Washington, and we put him as the turning point last week, right? Can we make it Malik Washington again? Can we make it Malik? All right, we're gonna fix more of these a little bit later, but I want to make it Malik in a way. All right, let's take a look, though, as we do here on the show week in and week out. And I have 1,000 pages of notes that you can never get to during the show. But the field goals, oh, man. First Jets punt of the game, Zach Sealer with a sack. Yeah, the defense came up huge late in the game. Very, very big late in the game is the defense really came through. And that's something that, for the Dolphins, they had to have that happen because Rodgers moved the ball pretty well all game. I think Garrett Williams outplayed Jalen Ramsey, and then Devontae Adams had a big game too. They were outplaying Hill and Waddle for a while in this game, and then the way that it ended, it was very, very close, but with the Dolphins getting the win, and this is the game you expect to see. Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Tua Tagovailoa, and Aaron Rodgers just going up and down the field. And if all those drives hadn't ended in field goals, the Jets kicked 1, 2, 3, 4 field goals in this game, and the Dolphins kicked 4 field goals in this game. So 8 field goals. Can you imagine, right? 8 times 4, because a field goal is 3 and a touchdown 6, unless you missed the extra point, which Sanders did early in the game. But think about that. 8 times 4, that's 32 more points on the board in this game between the two teams. That's what they left on the field by kicking field goals instead of scoring touchdowns. Now, granted, a couple of those field goals were deep, so you're not going to get in the red zone there. But when you're in the red zone and you're not scoring touchdowns, that's why you struggle on offense. And you can't run the ball. You can't pick up. Every time they had a short yardage play, whether it was a 1st and goal, 2nd and goal, 3rd and 1, 2nd and 1, 2 yards to go, every single time, if I'm not mistaken, every single time they got stuffed. And not only did they not gain yards, they lost yardage. They lost yardage on all those big running plays. So this team right now in short yardage cannot run the football. Mike McDaniel cannot sit there confidently and say, hey, we're going to run it on short yardage, and we're confident that we're going to make it. Because right now, and I know you have injuries up front. Look, Patrick Paul played a lot today. I thought he was good, decent at times, good at others, not really great. But, a lot of that, he's in for Teron Armstead, who was hurt today, and in and out of the game. So when you think about that, and then you think about the Jets not having Breece Hall, and the Jets also are without 2 of their best, C.J. Mosley and no Sauce Gardner. You know what I mean? So that's pretty big injuries with the Jets too. And for the Dolphins to just squeak by, man, you got a lot of work to do before you go to Houston. Green Bay last week, you had the muff punt, obviously, and then you had some things going wrong in the first half offensively, played better late. But outside of that, since Tua's come back, even the Buffalo game where they had to kick a 60-yard field goal to beat us, when Tua came back, the Dolphins offense started to click, and it's been clicking ever since. And just a tremendous job today by hanging with it by Tua. The Jets defense is really good, man. They might have been without 2 key players, but they're a really good defense. The defense hasn't been the problem with this team. But again, Jets have been struggling against Miami, won their last 9, haven't won here since 2014. And, just keep it going, right? Come on out and beat the Jets. 32-26, the Dolphins beat the Jets. You are watching Locked On Dolphins Postcast. My name is Jim Grieshaber. Call me Grease, and I'm so happy to be here with you today. And, man, every single time we're here after every Dolphins game, we are the post-game show on the Locked On Podcast Network for the Dolphins. Every team has a postcast. The day-to-day shows keep you up to date day-to-day. They do a great job. But after the games, come to the postcast. That's what we're here for. Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, free on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. So you have it. And so I did the spots a little bit backwards in the last break. So I owe one here, and I'm just going to do that. And there we go. One more commercial for you. We are going to tell you about PrizePicks. If you love, and I mean love, watching the game, you are going to love PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy. So whether it's football, basketball, any of your favorite sports, PrizePicks makes your holidays bigger and brighter. Here's why you need to check it out. You can now win up to 200 times your money on PrizePicks. That's 200 times your money. Plus, this holiday season, they are giving away $30+ million in rewards during Picksmas and offering 2 free picks in December. And when your picks hit, PrizePicks makes it easy to cash out. You can get your money in as fast as 15 minutes. Absolutely. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 instantly when you play just 5 at PrizePicks. Run your game. On the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Jim Grieshaber, call me Grease. 32-26, Miami just got the Dolphins, the greatest football team. All right, I'm not going to sing it, but hey, they win in overtime, and the Jets lose again in Miami. How many times, too, did you see the Rodgers face today? I wanted to start a drinking game, but I had a show. How great would it be to have a drinking game? And it could be like an airplane-themed drink, or it could be like a doofball-themed drink, for Rodgers. But every time you see the Rodgers face today, it was a few times, but I give it to the old pro. One thing I could never do is take anything away from Aaron Rodgers, the player. Mental midget, man, he's an intelligent dude. I'll say that. But, man, not a fan of Aaron Rodgers, never have been. And, it is what it is. But he played really well today. The field goals were a big thing in this game, but for both teams, each team had 4 defenses holding those offenses to field goals throughout the game. A lot of bend but don't break on the defensive side of the football for both teams. But at the end of the day, man, the Dolphins find a way to get things done. Thank you for making Locked On Dolphins Postcast your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Jim Grieshaber, call me Grease. We got the breaks in the books. We got everything done. These are the breaks. Break it up. What we didn't do is hit the stats for you. How about Tua? 33 of 47, 331, 2 touchdowns for Tua. Did not get sacked in the game today. Aaron Rodgers, 27 to 39. 339 with a touchdown. The gunslinger sacked 3 times, though. Big ones down the stretch by the Dolphins defense that helped them get this win. And the Dolphins running game, I've already talked too much about it. 14 carries for 24 yards for HN. That's 1.7 per carry. He did have the touchdown. His longest run was 7 yards. 44 yards on the ground, 2.3 yards per carry for Miami. That is not going to get it done. Meanwhile, Allen and Davis, replacing Breece Hall for the Jets, had a combined 21 carries for 83 yards and 1 touchdown scored by Davis. Allen had, I believe, Brandon Allen had 38 yards receiving. Yeah, he did. And then Davis had 27 yards through the air as well. But the receivers were where it was at today for these two teams. How about Tyreek Hill? 10 catches, 115 yards. Best game of the year for the Cheetah. Had the touchdown. And what a day for Tyreek Hill. That one in the Jacksonville game on opening day. Jalen Waddle, 9 for 99, 11-yard average. And he had a 2-point conversion. So Hill and Waddle, 19 catches for 214 yards and a touchdown plus a 2-point conversion. Wilson and Adams for the Jets, 7 for 14 for Garrett. A lot of that man-on-man on Jalen Ramsey, by the way. 7 catches, 114 yards. Devontae Adams, 9 for 109 and a touchdown. His best game as a Jet. And by the way, I said it earlier, Tua spread the ball out to 8 different receivers. When you're looking at the team stats for this game, and This is something that is really interesting to me because Miami had a bunch of drives in the second half where they didn't go anywhere. So the numbers were looking low. Tua was barely over 200 passing, but he was able to pick it up and have his third straight 300-yard game. So Dolphins had 5 more first downs, 28-23. Not much difference in many of the stats in this game. Total plays, a couple more for Miami. The Jets had 27 more yards, 402 to 375. The passing yards, 331 to 319 for Miami. Rushing, 83 to 44 for the Jets. Red zone, 2 of 5 for the Jets, 3 of 4 for Miami. That means the times they scored, not the times they got touchdowns. Penalties, 10 for 83 for the Jets. Thank God they were worse because the Dolphins had 8 for 49. And some bad ones, too. Some bad ones. And then the time of possession, 32-53 to 31-02. A very even game. Very, very even game. And, what ended up deciding it in the end is the Dolphins defense stepped up and got huge sacks and stops late in the game. Now, remember, the Jets hadn't punted the ball till the fourth quarter. They had 2 3-and-outs the whole night. They were both in the fourth quarter. Back-to-back like it's Drake on a track. You know what I'm saying? Back-to-back. So that was huge for the Dolphins defense. You get the 2 back-to-back stops. You get Malik Washington with the 48-yard kickoff return to set up Jason Sanders to tie the game. Then you go to OT. You go down the field. 3 catches for 44 yards on one drive after having no catches the whole day for Jonnu Smith. And there you have it. Miami's got the Dolphins. There you go. So 32-26 in overtime for Miami. And we are just having a blast here on your Locked On Dolphins postcast. And I so bad want to make Malik Washington's kickoff return the moment in this game because it was last week when he fumbled. But I'm going to say this. I'm gonna go with something I haven't done much of this year for that. So we're going to hit those in just a minute for you with the big stops down the stretch for the Dolphin defense. That's what did it in this game. Is those stops down the stretch. And then the offense, when the defense does that and the defense goes out and makes plays like that, you have to go out and score, man. You have to go out and score when that happens because you know what I mean? The defense is a big shot in the arm. The offense was, not running the football, not moving the ball. Like they moved it all day, but they didn't get it in big chunks, throwing it down the field, all sorts of things, but they are still alive. And it's really important when you look at this Miami team right now and you think about where it wants to go and where they're headed, and then I'm going to throw this one right in here. And because the Dolphins have their own destiny in their control. And that's, it's important. You're going to need some teams to lose down the stretch, and they're going to lose, right? Right now these teams are almost at 500, just like you are. So you're going to have those teams in front of you, and we'll hit that before we get out of here, the playoff race. So you are going to have that happen. You're going to have, those teams in front of you are going to lose some games before you finish up this season. There is no doubt that that's going to happen. So you just keep taking care of business on your side and watch it all happen. Just watch it all happen and watch it unfold. And I really believe that this team's equipped to do it. The Cardinals game, I think, is going to come back to kill them. That was a home game that they should have won, even though the Cardinals are better than we thought at the time. And still, they're the Cardinals. And then the Bills game where they probably should have won that on the road. They had the bad penalty on the secondary on that last drive. And then Josh Allen engineers that drive. The Bills kick a real long field goal to win that game. So the Cardinals game, that Bills game, Bills have already clinched the division. But you'd like to see and you'd hope that, the Dolphins, like today, you stole a game that you really should have lost. Even that Colts game, that 16-10 game, Huntley's last game, I'll throw that in there too because you had a chance there. You had a chance, and it was 16-10. So between those three, those are going to come back to burn you maybe later in the year. And maybe, you get a really good draft pick or two, or you could trade down. And, I don't know. They're going to be good in the draft this year. I know that. But they're figuring out how to get Hill and Waddle the ball more. It's not opening up the deep game yet. They have to figure out a way to do that. But so far, so good. They've won the games they need to win. The Green Bay game on the road last week, the offense didn't play well in the first. You had the muff punt. There's different things that happen in these games that cause the outcomes. But today could have been unmitigated disaster. Today could have been dreams over. Today could have been a game you look back at the end of the season when you missed the playoffs by a game or two and you go, damn, we should have had that one. We should have had that game, and they did. They won it, to their credit. And the last thing I'll say about that is I love the mentality and the mindset, too, of going down the field to score a touchdown in OT. You kick a field goal, the Jets get the ball back. They can either match it and you keep playing, or the touchdown, right? They either match your field goal or they score the touchdown and they beat you. So either way, you're not going to win, right? So what do? You go down there and you go for the win right away. And they did that with Jonnu Smith, who could have been the player of the game too, who will be the player of the game. Let's hit the elements on the way out. These are the elements of the show. Thanks to our crack production team for making them. Real quick, some housekeeping. Want to let you know, yes, we will be here in just a couple hours with your Locked On Heat postcast. Huge game for the Heaters today, welcoming in the Cleveland Cavaliers, who flew in just in time to go to Art Basel last night in the after party. So hopefully they'll be dragging a little bit, but the Heat with an important game against the best team in the NBA record-wise. Cleveland's 15-3, and we'll have the postcast right after that game. Dolphins next week at Houston. We'll have that. It stinks that we didn't have the Canes yesterday and next week, but they didn't make the playoffs, didn't play in the ACC championship game. So we have Dolphins next week, Texans, Heat all week this week, and not next weekend because the Play-In Cup is happening in Vegas, and they lost all their games there. So you look at the Heat coming up a little bit later today. We are your official post-game shows on the Locked On Podcast Network. The day-to-day guys do a great job. You follow them day-to-day, but post-game right here after the Dolphins game, no question about it, and after the Heat game as well. All right, before we get out of here, let's hit that final score graphic. In overtime, 32-26, the Dolphins win the game. There's Tua surveying the scene. And the reason I chose this picture is because our media partner, when they upload the pictures, sometimes they're not all up right after the game, and I'm trying to go as fast as I can. The goal is to start right when the game ends. And we try that every week, and we get closer and closer. But the reason I picked this picture is because Tua can see out in front of him, and the Dolphins, I don't want to say they control their own destiny, but they can see the playoffs. You know, last week, tough loss against Green Bay, but you can still see the playoffs. It's a distant island. It's a little fuzzy, and you're like, oh, yeah, I can kind of see it. But, you know, it's still there. It's still a possibility. So the overtime win, Sanders with the field goal, 12 of 13 in his career, under 2 minutes or less with a chance to win the game or in overtime. Just a great job by him. All right, here's the moment. And the moment could have been the game-winning field goal. The moment could have been the kickoff return for Washington. But where did this game actually turn to where the Dolphins were about to lose this game, and then it turned? And it wasn't the offense that turned this game, as great as Tua was today and Tyreek and Waddle, and as great as Jason Sanders was with the kick. He had to put the bow on it and send it to overtime. Yeah. And as great as the offense was to win the game with Jonnu, yes, but we're not talking about those plays. We're talking about the turning point of this game, and here it is right here. And I'm going to pull this up so I make sure I get this right. And I am going to pull this up so I make sure I get this right. So it was in the fourth quarter, and the Dolphins defense had not forced a 3-and-out all day for the New York Jets. And then late in the game, with everything on the line, the Jets up 23-15, a chance to put it away. Dolphins defense forces a punt. You know what I'm saying? The Jets get the ball back after that next drive. It's 23-23. The Jets have to punt again. But then the Dolphins had a punt. Crazy, right? Then field goal. You know what I mean? So all these different things coming to fruition for Miami. But the defense, look at that harassing of Aaron Rodgers. Zach Sealer had a big sack today. The Dolphins defense with 3-and-out 2 times. 2 times they make the Jets go 3-and-out in the fourth quarter. That turned the game because one of them was when the Jets were up 23-15, and another one was when it was 23-23, right? So 2 punts at great opportune times forced by the Dolphins defense. That's the turning point of the game on a day when Jets kicked 4 field goals. They held them to field goals on 4 of those drives too. So there you have it. And how about, what's his name? Well, Anders Carlson for the Jets. 4 for 4 on field goals, hits a 50-plus yarder that could have won the game inside of 2 minutes. The guy's been kicking for 2 weeks after being released by Green Bay. All right, the Dolphins defense is the turning point. And the star of our show, who else but Tua Tagovailoa? I mean, who else are you going to choose? You could choose Tyreek Hill, 100-yard receiving game, first one since opening day, had a touchdown. No big plays, though, for Tyreek. Malik Washington's kickoff return gives him honorable mention. Jason Sanders' game-tying field goal does too, but he also missed an extra point, right? That would have been a game-winning field goal. Would have been no overtime. So it is Tua. It is Tua Tagovailoa. What a game for him. 331 yards passing, couple of touchdowns, no sacks. Actually ran one today and slid. I was proud of him, but he hit 8 different receivers as he always does. Tyreek and Waddle at the top of that list. That's the biggest thing this week, is seeing those guys with 19 catches and a touchdown plus a 2-point conversion, 200-plus yards receiving to match what Wilson and Adams did with Rodgers for the Jets. You know, in a game that saw 8 field goals with 2 quarterbacks throwing the way they were, It was taking what the defenses gave you, going underneath medium range at best. And in the end, the Dolphins, that's their game, and they won that game today. And they get to 6-7, tied with Indy on the outside looking in, on the peripheral right now. But, we'll see with the Texans coming up next week. That's all there is, Fins fans. There is no more Locked On Dolphins postcast on your Sunday. Jim Grieshaber, call me Grease, at Jim Grease _ GRIES on social media here after every Dolphins game with your postcast. Going to be here in a couple hours after the Heat play the Cleveland Cavaliers today. We'll be here on the YouTube channel as well as wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, Apple Music, Stitcher, Podbean, you name it. We are here and we are free day in and day out with the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, 32-26 the final. They beat the Jets. Jets eliminated from playoff contention. They own the Jets. The Jets haven't won in Miami since 2014. The Fins have won 8 out of 9 over them. 100-yard games, almost for Waddle, 99 yards, but for Hill, and a great game for them. So Tua, Tyreek, and Jalen Waddle looking like we thought they would look throughout the year this season today in this game when it mattered most with no room for error. And if nothing else in this season, if it doesn't end up the way you wanted in the end, you can say, hey, at least we eliminated the Jets. We were the ones that knocked them out. And with Tua's concussion and everything, I mean, this team is going to be loaded next year. Same talk heading into next season. But I will tell you this, one more thing before we wrap this show. And anybody who's watching around the NFL, because I know all these cities, they like to watch and find out what's going on, okay? So know this about the Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins fan, know this. There is nobody in the AFC, nobody who wants to face this offense in the playoffs. There's not a team out there who wants to deal with Tua, Tyreek, Waddle, all that speed, the efficiency. His numbers are absurd. His QB rating's number 3. He's just incredible. But the deep ball, they've got to figure out a way how to implement that into their offensive arsenal and attack if they're going to win and go on to all the things they want to do. But nobody wants to see this team down the stretch, a playoff contender, and nobody wants to see this team in the playoffs. I can guarantee you that. Keep your game tight and your mind right, Fins fans. 32-26 with the dub, 6-7 on the year. We'll see you next week with another episode of your Locked On Dolphins postcast. Jim Grieshaber, call me Grease on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team